and welcome to the Hercules Tires Mental Health Moment. Joining us today is Coach Alex Simmons. She is a two-time national champion under Pat Summitt at University of Tennessee. She had stints at Middle Tennessee State and Ole Miss from 2010 to 2018, was named a 30 under 30 top assistant coach in 2017, and is in her fifth season as women's basketball head coach at Gardner-Webb University. Coach Alex, thank you so much for taking time with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So, if you will just give us a brief background about where you came from, your career, and just what drives you to be an advocate for mental health.
Well, I'm originally from Shelbyville, Tennessee, where I grew up all my life. I was fortunate to be able to get into the game of basketball at a somewhat young age, but didn't necessarily start early like most athletes do. Played through high school. Went to University of Tennessee, went right into coaching as soon as I graduated as a graduate assistant at the University of Kansas. After my first year there, I was able to go to Middle Tennessee State back in Tennessee. Spent 3 years there. Won many conference championships, went to the NCAA tournament, went to Ole Miss for 5 years, and which led me to here at Gardner-Webb. And really, what drives me and probably what I guess keeps me in this business of women's basketball is just being able to be some type of impact to women, to student athletes coming in. I enjoy my day-to-day life of coming to the office and players coming in and out. Obviously, being on the court and being able to coach basketball is great, but I think that's something that I look forward to every day is seeing our players.
I love that. And I just know from going to Gardner-Webb and seeing you around campus that you do hold, you have confidence, and like I know your players do come to you a lot. And being a student athlete, I know it's so nice to have a coach, especially when you don't have a family on campus. Your coach is kind of your family, and you feel like you can go and talk to them and everything. So I think that's awesome. So diving a bit into your career as a student athlete, you said you went to the University of Tennessee and you were very successful with two national championship titles. And I know you probably realized quickly that being that successful comes with a lot of attention. How did you handle those high expectations? How did that affect you? And how were you able to handle the pressure that comes with that?
Well, the high expectations was something that was reminded to us every single day. Just knowing who we are, knowing who we have across our chest, and knowing what's on the back of our jerseys. We kept a pretty small and tight circle, but I think that was able because of that we had very strong relationships with each other as teammates, and then with our coaches. But the reminder of who we are and being seen all the time, for lack of better terms, being watched all the time.
Mm-hmm.
That was always emphasized when I was a student athlete at Tennessee. So, you kind of were able to, you didn't always make it that decision, obviously just being a college student, but you learned very quickly that, if you weren't mindful of your image and things like that, then, you could be led down the wrong path.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure that's also just carried you, something you had to learn really young, and it just kind of has carried you throughout your coaching career.
It has, and it's something that I think has kind of trickled into me coaching my student athletes here at Gardner Webb, because that's something that we always talk about is just image and the targets on your back, and being the team and the people who are recognizable on campus walking around. So it's honestly trickled down into my coaching career now.
That's awesome, and a great reminder just for everybody to remember where you come from and who you're representing. So going into that, your senior year, 2008 to 2009, you just come off your second national championship. And I read in an article that you were the only senior on a very young squad. So what was your mentality going into that year, and how were you able to use your experience to help your teammates who were not used to being in that environment?
I think that last year was the year, like I call it the year of maturity for me, because I had to grow up real quick. I was the only one who had been in the program for 5 years. I think there was probably like even a 2 year age gap and year gap between me and some of the other players. So, I had to grow up real quick and just be a vessel for all of our young players and underclassmen, because they were, coming to me for everything. That year, I think they called me Mama Alex because they came to me literally about everything, basketball, non-basketball, whatever it was. So, just being available, however I needed to be available, but still, understanding what I needed to. But I think, I'm more of a giving and, um, I guess, emotional person. So, it was kind of easy for me to transition into that role.
I think we had similar experiences in our senior years. As my
Yeah.
fifth year, everybody called me grandma because I was like, I think it was like my fifth or sixth year, and there were like students that came in and they were 18, and we were listening to
hmm
songs in practice. And I was like, oh, I remember this in high school. And they were like, I was in elementary school then.
Right, right.
What? So,
Yeah. And it's funny because when I came in, I was 17 as a freshman.
oh, wow.
So
So
I was
you're,
technically younger than my
mm.
class. And so then, going into your senior year, now all of a sudden, I'm the old one. And I was probably also called grandma a couple of times too. Probably more so because I had bad knees more than anything. But
that was that was mine. You probably remember me walking around campus and
yeah,
like
yeah.
bandages and everything. I was always hurt and limping around.
Uh-huh. Yep.
You definitely learn how to, I guess, just like teach the younger ones on what not to do and
And
how
what
to
not to do,
yes
exactly.
and keep healthy and all that kind of stuff. So once you transitioned into coaching, how are you able to use those experience to relate to your student athletes?
It's a, being realistic. Sometimes we get some people can get into leadership roles, and all of a sudden their reality and their expectations become way higher than the expectations they have for themselves at that same age. So, just sticking to my guns a little bit when it came to my expectations. Obviously, we want to win at a high level. But when it comes to, behavior and decision making, just having a little bit of, giving our players a little bit of grace sometimes when it comes to their decision making. Because at one point, I was in that space. So just remembering, like you said earlier, where I came from, who I was as a student athlete, and just kind of trying to navigate through whatever issues or through whatever roadblocks that we may come by. I'm here at Gardner Webb, and remembering back then how I was, and then trying to teach our players, kind of learning from my mistakes and helping them through theirs.
That's awesome. And I think that's so powerful too when you can come straight out of being a student athlete and be able
hmm
to relate so closely to your students and then remember how that was. I think that also helps too, like as a former student athlete, being able to
Right.
see, oh, like she went through this. So like
Yeah.
I have the confidence that she knows what she's talking about and she
Yeah.
dealt with that.
And I would like to think that we're pretty transparent in our program. I think, sometimes you can watch coaches' interviews or, just videos, things like that, the programs put out, and you just see kind of perfection.
Mm.
And I feel like when you talk to our player, if you would talk to our players, they would say that, we not necessarily expose, but we put everything out on the table. We share some of our experiences as college athletes. We share some of the things that we went through, whether it be mentally or physically. So I think they know that and they see that and they can see that, our staff is organic and real, and we're not perfect, and we don't want them to be perfect. We don't expect them to be perfect, but we do want to try to strive for perfection so that at least we're coming, somewhat close to it.
Yeah, you guys are real. And I've seen that in your interviews too. And I think that's important just for people to see just like the realness because they, can take you as you are and you're not trying to put on a show for anybody. And I think that's
Yeah.
so different. And I
Yeah.
think that also goes into a quote that I read in an article that you had said. You said success is built on inconvenience. And I mentioned that because I just love that quote. And a
Mm.
lot of my life has been inconveniences that I've just turned around. So could you just elaborate on how that shaped your mindset and how you've used that throughout your career?
So that I can't take credit for that. My high school coach, who is also he's the head coach at Middle Tennessee right now. And I worked for him at Middle Tennessee, but that's something that he's instilled in me as a player and a coach since shoot, I've known, I mean, they're like family to me. So we've known each other my whole life. And that's something that he used to say. I'm pretty sure it was like on the wall somewhere in our locker room, but that's something that he used to say. And, I've kind of just lived by that in my, personal life, family life, professional life. Um, because I went from, Tennessee, moving all the way to Kansas, not knowing a soul,
Wow.
um, being there for a year, just being not by myself, but by myself.
Mm.
Um, and I had to do that because obviously I wouldn't be where I am right now, um, and wouldn't have had the experiences that I've had up to this point. So, I feel like, it was an inconvenience because, it was uncomfortable. So being able to do that, knowing how it feels to not necessarily be, happy all the time, not necessarily be around family all the time. I know what that feels like. But I also think you have to go through those types of things to get some type of success. You have to go through some hard stuff um, to earn success. And that's pretty much what that means.
And I think that kind of goes along with the quote, in order to grow, you have to go through the uncomfortableness.
Hmm.
And if you're always comfortable, then you're not growing. So I think that that fits really well. And I love
Yeah.
that. So, as a former student athlete, just taking from my own experience, I remember all the tough practices and the lifts and just leaving everything on the track day after day, just trying to do your absolute hardest, pushing yourself to the limit, and all for, a game or a meet to where you can say that you gave it your all. And even through those times, there are those meets, there are those games where you lose or you don't perform like you thought you were going to. So, as a coach, how do you help your athletes through those mental blocks and when they just feel defeated and get on to the next game or practice?
Well, I think as coaches and as a coach, I have to do a great job of being able to read our players.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I pride myself in knowing and reading body languages and everybody has that one thing that they do when they feel uncomfortable or when they're not happy or when they're sad. So me understanding and being able to recognize those cues, and then just addressing it head on. I'm a big believer in conversations and not just one way conversations, having two-way conversations. So, um, I'm somebody who, when I see it, I'm going to address it right then, and then address it depending on who you're talking to and who you're dealing with, because everybody can't handle the same conversation the same way. So just, understanding, recognizing probably be the first priority, and then understanding where it's coming from, reminding our players of who they are and where they come from. That's huge in our program. It's just always remembering who we are. Not necessarily from an accolade standpoint, but we've all went through something to get here. So understanding what that journey looks like, and as of today at 10:15, I've made it. You know what I'm saying? So um, just understanding that and being mindful of, when we are going through something, you have to communicate it.
That's so true. And along with those student athletes, I think sometimes people forget that the first part of being a student athlete is being a student.
Mm-hmm.
And there comes a lot just with being an athlete and then put the student on top of that. So, how do you check in on your athletes outside of the practice as well and just throughout their daily life?
So we have, I think maybe it's a generation thing, but everything's all about the text message. And so we have different, I mean, there's like 5 different group chats going on in this program between positions, between, everybody, between coaches, between players only, my group chat with the players, my group chat with the staff. So, there's a lot of communication going on the daily. Well, our graduate assistant, Kiki McKinney, she has mental health check-ins, obviously through text messages, but she uses emojis, and the team will, she'll ask them, how we feeling, and they'll send an emoji that correlates to however they're feeling, which I think that's pretty cool. That's something that she started in our program. Um, so I think it's just, some may think it's overly communicating. I think our team knows, kind of where the line is drawn, when it comes to what we communicate about and things like that. But yeah, we communicate heavily in our program.
There's nothing as too much communication, I think.
Yeah.
So that's so important. And also kind of bringing your players, and I've noticed just around campus, your players are really are like your family, which when you
Hmm.
spend that much time with them,
Hmm.
they're gonna be like your family. And I also know you have two daughters who
Hmm.
are like your biggest fans, and they run around the gym, and the players also are really good with them too, and kind
Hmm.
of treat them like they're, their own sisters. So can you just speak on the importance of just being there for your athletes outside of basketball, especially during the season when they might not see their families as often?
Well, I think, we don't realize how much the student athletes need us. And I think it's gotten that way. You have different aspects and avenues as far as the transfer portal and, just playing this sport, dating this person. So there's a lot of things that can affect, your mental focus. And so, I would rather have a family atmosphere more than a, transactional atmosphere where, you bring them in, you put them through 4 steps, which is, freshman to senior year, and then you send them away. And then, the relationship's done. And it's like almost like an assembly line, like, so I don't want to have that type of program. I couldn't imagine being in a program, having a staff, having players that I didn't want to always be around. Um, I want my staff to be super close. I want our players to be super close. Obviously, there's going to be times that, things are going to be hard, but I think the closer you are, the easier it is to handle those hard times. So that's where I've always come from. I've worked for coaches who were very family oriented. My family is very close and family oriented. So, why wouldn't I want my program to be that way? I want my daughters to see that, especially in the world that we live in, that, all these different types of people can, coexist and still and be family. Um, they don't know any different. They think that all of our players are supposed to come to our house every day after we do a team dinner at the house. Well, are the players coming back tomorrow? Well, no, because they have their own they have their own apartments. That was just an occasional thing. But if they had their way, they would be at our house all the time. So yeah, I think it's important to be inclusive to everybody so that everybody kind of feels that hug when you can't get a hug from your mom or your dad or whoever is important to you.
I think that was my favorite part about being on a team was going into practice and whether I had a great day and could
Hmm.
annoy the heck out of everybody because I was
Hmm.
just, so happy, or I came in and had an awful day and they would come to me and I knew that I had that support system. And then, my coach the same way, just like you said, you're in tune with your athletes. You just know that your coach can pick up on when you're having a bad day, and then that reach out
Yeah.
after practice, like, hey, you had a great practice, or hey, I hope everything's okay. It just helps you feel
Yeah.
seen. And I think that's so
Yeah.
important.
Yeah. And I think the fact that they know that, and I hate to use they're being watched, but I think that somebody is investing the time into getting to
Yeah,
know, them and who they are and what they're like when they're down and what they're like when they're bad. I think that's also important.
absolutely. And speaking kind of on that family aspect, you have a lot of roles too. You're a coach, obviously, but you're also a mom and a wife and a role model. So, how do you juggle all of those roles while taking care of your own mental health?
I just think being myself, I don't major in the minors. I try not to anyways. A thing for our program this year especially has been every, pregame prep that we have, um, it's have fun because I think that's super important. I have fun with what I do every day. whether it's sitting in the office with the door shut watching film, whether it's being in practice, whether it's sitting in a meeting across campus. I enjoy every aspect of being a college coach. So, um, I know when I think I would consider myself very self-aware. So I know when I'm slacking off. I know when I'm doing too much. I know when I just need a day. Um, and I think my coaches in particular, I spend the most time with them. I think they are pretty good at recognizing that also. So, I just, like I said, I guess I live my life, but I don't major in the minor. So I'm not gonna get stressed about something that's, very, very, very minuscule.
Yeah, or the things that you can't control because
Yeah.
everyone has those things. So what do you do when you are just like stressed or you just need, you need a moment? What is like your favorite thing to do just to kind of decompress?
Honestly, I'm going to get my nails done. Or it's funny that you asked that because one Nadiria yesterday she asked me, "Are you artsy?" Because we were on the road and I was looking at some of the paintings or whatever on VCU's locker room in their hallway. And I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, that looks like it's vinyl, but I think it's some of it's hand painted and stuff like that." She's like, "Are you artsy?" I said, "Yeah, kind of." And like just the other day, I just felt something. So I went into Hobby Lobby and bought some window markers and I decorated our office window for Christmas.
I
So,
love
I just do stuff like that. I guess I like really depend. I'll make bracelets for the team sometimes. Um, I can hand sew, so making
Oh wow.
blankets and stuff like that.
That's a good
Um,
skill to have. I wish I had that. I
yeah.
said that the other day. I wish I could sew. It'd come in handy with some clothes.
Yeah, I actually got a sewing machine for Christmas one year. So
Really?
yeah, I haven't made anything yet, but
I
I
want to
just
see it when you do. I want to see what you make.
okay, I will. I'll show you. But yeah, just doing little stuff, spending time with my husband and my daughters. That's kind of our thing. Whether it's going out to eat somewhere, going to the movies.
So on that, we talked about sewing and clothes, which is funny because it goes into what I say as you are a fashion icon. I think that's another
Mm.
title that you should add as well as some responsibilities. Because if nobody watches your game fits, then they need to start paying attention. Because I love watching you come out in the court, and I know I've told you this a million times, but especially like your heels, and especially for being someone who's so tall, and I'm tall as well. I
Right.
always wear heels, so I love seeing someone else wearing them. Like, oh man, where did she get those? So on that, and I saw on your social media too, on your Instagram, that you tag
Yeah.
sometimes where you get your outfits and your daughter's
Yes.
outfits, which I'm gonna pay extra attention to now. Um, but so on that same line with social media, because it can be so fun and just so fun to like see different things and get inspiration, but it also can take that toll on your mental health.
Right.
So what's like any advice or tips that you have to enjoy social media without really having it take that toll?
So one of Michaela Funderburg on TikTok, I like TikTok and all that kind of stuff. So
Mm-hmm.
there was a video, and I guess you can see like who watches your stuff. And she said, "Coach Alex, you watched my video and you didn't like it." And I said, "Because I didn't like it." And she was like, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "I don't like I'm not a person who, just likes everything or like if I like something I, legitimately like it and if I don't like it, I don't like it." Like I guess when I say I don't like it, I don't hit hard thumb or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Um and I think for social media, so much stuff is about, the likes, the
Mm-hmm.
comments or the the numbers and how many do we get on this? How many views do we get on this? But for social media, if I literally if I don't like something, I don't care who it is. I don't care if I know the person. Um, whether it's my husband, my staff. If I don't like something, I just don't like it.
Yeah.
And I think people get so caught up in what other people think,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's probably a negative with social media is that you depend on so much of other people's opinions when technically that's like for me anyways, I'll speak for myself. It's like just a personal blog for me that I didn't have to start. The template was already done. So I just used the Instagram to make my posts and everything like that. So, but yeah, I don't necessarily, I take it serious, but I don't take it too serious to the point that, I'm worried about the numbers and things like that. Now, if I start getting brand deals and stuff like that, then I'll worry about the numbers.
We can work on that. We can see what we can do about that.
Yes, yes.
That also just speaks to what you said earlier about just being real. Is, if you don't like something, you're not gonna like it just, for the sake of it. So it's just being real. And Instagram started doing this thing because I used to be a person where I would see like the likes and it would like get in my head. And so now they
Mm-hmm.
have that thing where you just see like this person and others liked it. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
helped a lot too. So now I
Mm-hmm.
can worry less about who's liking, everything you post. And like you said, like if I like it, I'm just gonna post it and not worry
Right,
about anybody else. Just be real,
right,
be me, and that's what it is.
right. My players went through this whole thing a while ago, and I had no idea. They said that if you are the first person to view a story or something like that apparently that's weird. And I'm just like, how is that weird? So
So
yeah,
funny. And I've heard
but
that too.
again, that speaks to I don't understand that whole concept. So I'm just gonna stick to what I do and not worry about everything else.
That's probably the best way. I'd say that's the best way to do it. Don't get too involved with it and just have fun.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the way to go. So my just last kind of question to wrap it all up. I know we talked about your daughters before, and they're always cheering you on. And I've seen you even like have them walk out on the court with you sometimes, which I love. So, what advice would you want them to hold on to as they get older when it comes to their mental health?
Probably just have confidence and not let anyone dictate who you are or what defines who you are. In this life journey, we all have mistakes, we all have challenges, we all have successes. But at the end of the day, none of those really define, who we are. None of those can define the confidence that you have. So just stick into what you believe in, being accepting of other people and other people's backgrounds. I think that's the most important thing that I can pass along to them.
That's so important. Just being real, being you, being confident. And you definitely have that confidence on the court throughout school. And I love seeing that because it's just, I think it's an inspiration for just everyone who walks around, just being like, why am I not just like that? Just be yourself.
Yeah, be yourself. I can't be anybody else but Alex. So if I tried
I,
to be Kelsey, then I may struggle a little bit.
I definitely couldn't be Alex. So we'll stick to being ourselves. Well, thank you so much, Coach Alex, for coming on here and taking the time just to speak about the importance of mental health. So, from the Big South, this has been your Hercules Tires Mental Health Moment.